Welcome back to the Hour and By podcast. My name is Nima.
My name is Aaron.
And today we're joined by a very special guest, Dr. Pawlicki, the current ASHP president. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Welcome.
Really appreciate you taking the time out to sit down with us. Well, virtually sit down with us. Just for the viewers, can you get into a little bit about your role as ASHP president?
Sure. Thank you for inviting me. I do appreciate this opportunity. I'm finishing my term as ASHP. I was installed as the 76th president of ASHP last summer at the Boston Summer Meeting. And as the president of ASHP, I work very closely with our CEO, Paul Abramowitz, and our board of directors. I chair the board of directors. And we help drive decision within the organization, help establish strategy, make sure that we're meeting our members' needs, responding to any changes. We've seen a few of them, haven't we, over the last year. So that really is what my official role is entitled. There's a lot of pieces to it, but essentially that's the umbrella.
Perfect. So you've been director of pharmacy at many health systems. I mean, you've been a pharmacist longer than I've been alive. So you've done this for a long time. Was ASHP?
I have.
Was ASHP president something you had your eyes on, or was it something that one thing led to another, and that's where you ended up?
It was definitely the latter. I never would have envisioned myself 35 plus years ago in this role. One thing did lead to another. I took advantage of opportunities that came along the way. I actually started out right after my residency. I was asked by the director of pharmacy that I worked with if I wanted to co-edit a newsletter for our local association. And so I started my career there, and one thing led to another. Before I knew it, I was a board of directors. I was a director on that local organization, and then I became treasurer and secretary and then president, and then I moved on. That allowed me to get involved at the state level. And so I started my career kind of tangentially at the state level, involved in our state organizations. And then that led to my involvement in the national organization. So one thing certainly led to another. And I was very fortunate, and I just took advantage of every opportunity that came my way. But I've enjoyed every piece of it. And I would not have skipped any one of those steps. I think all were very important to understand at the local, the state, and the national level how we piece together policy, advocacy, tools, resources, member connections. So it's all been really a building block, if you will, to this type of a position.
Okay.
Wow. Well, it seems like you have done the whole gamut in the world of pharmacy. So I guess what is the biggest change? What is the biggest change you would like to see in the pharmacy world, and how do you think you can help attain this?
Sure. I think that we still have a ways to go to making sure that all citizens, all patients have access and appropriate use of their medications. So that is everything from the supply chain issues that we have, the pricing of pharmaceuticals, to what we do as pharmacists and technicians and how we're supported by technology. So I can't really pull out one specific piece, but I do believe that there are a number of components. Through my role as an officer of ASHP, I certainly can help provide feedback and direction for the organization and how we meet those needs for our patients through our pharmacy services. In addition to that, I am currently on the Board of Pharmacy with the state of Michigan, and I do believe that I have certainly some some ability to influence through that group. We currently are reviewing all of the rules, the administrative rules for pharmacy. It hasn't been done for years in Michigan, so I'm able to have a direct voice on how those rules are changed or maintained to allow us to practice, both from a pharmacist, a technician, a practice of pharmacy, to the best that we can for our patients, to assure that they have optimal medication management to manage their health.
You brought up Michigan.
Oh, sorry about that. Go ahead, Nima.
Go ahead. So you brought up Michigan. You received several awards from Michigan Society of Health System Pharmacists throughout your career. What makes you be so motivated to go above and beyond your daily task at your job?
That's a good question. So I grew up in a very small farming town in the middle of Michigan. I had a small high school, and my father really instilled in me early on the importance of giving back to family and community. He really was a strong proponent of being actively involved and engaged, and really embracing community. So it was really that early influence that I had that really drove me to always want to be involved. And really, I was fortunate. I chose a career that I feel we have a very good community in pharmacy. And you would be amazed at how many people know someone else who knows someone else. And maybe you've already ran into that in your career. But really that instilling that sense of need to never settle and to continue to give back to community really inspires me to continue to get involved.
So like you just alluded to, you spoke on, never stopping, never settling. Can you tell us a little bit about resilience and how important that has been throughout your career and your life?
Yeah, resilience is very important. If you look at the statistics, burnout is pretty prevalent within healthcare professions. There's a lot of demands placed on us. The complexity of the world we deal with in healthcare is not getting simpler these days, and constantly being bombarded with new information, different sources of information, technology. It's quite challenging and certainly can be stressful. A high level of stress results in burnout. Burnout really is a low self-esteem, lack of accomplishment, just a lot of cynicism. And all of that put together really speaks to the need for always remaining or working on resiliency. And that's, if you were to think of a rubber band and if you stretched it, put it under stress, resiliency is that ability that once you relieve that stress, you bounce back to normal, to steady state. So it's creating habits that allow you after a very stressful period of time to bounce back to normalcy, which helps you eliminate that sense of burnout that happens with constant stress. So it's really important. If you've ever read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits, if you haven't, I would highly recommend it. It was written over 20 years ago, and he really talked about resiliency in chapter 7 or habit 7, which is sharpening the saw. And it's really making sure that you have a balanced approach to health, your mental stimulation, social, as well as spiritual, and really keeping that in the forefront and always practicing those habits so that you do create resiliency. So it is really extremely important for all of us, especially those in healthcare, that we do make sure we maintain the ability to respond back after stress, and that's creating some resiliency in your life, some abilities to get away from it all the chaos that sometimes feels like healthcare is these days.
You've been in the pharmacy realm for an extended period of time. Throughout your career, how has the world of pharmacy changed in your perspective?
Oh my gosh, what hasn't changed, right? everything has changed. I would say that the biggest piece that's changed, that's driven change within pharmacy, is the complexity of healthcare itself. So everything from how we deliver care, the technology we use, the expectations on multidisciplinary care planning, and the need for us to really work at the, if you will, the top of our license, and leverage our pharmacy technicians to the best of the capabilities that we can allow them to practice in different arenas and at a higher level, that allow us as pharmacists to really move out and care for our patients much differently. So it's hard to pinpoint one specific thing. I will say, I truly believe, from what I've seen in the last year in my position, I do believe that digital therapeutics, digital health will really transform and make significant impact on how we deliver care in the next 5+ years. It's on the horizon. I do think the current pandemic is only going to push it further. But I think we're going to see tremendous exponential amount of change over the next several years as we move into digital health, digital therapeutics.
So you just spoke about leveraging, what we're doing as pharmacists and how to practice at the top of our license. So how important is it to develop those relationships with different interprofessional organizations, like the AMA, or working with physicians, right, and things like that? So can you just speak on that?
Sure. It is extremely important. The complexity of the world that we live in healthcare today is really dependent upon interdisciplinary work and care for our patients. So I'm really proud of the work that ASHP and our team members have done to create that interdisciplinary collaboration with multiple other organizations. Several examples, we've recently held a task force on the opioid epidemic and created a number of action items, and we work very closely with the American Association of Anesthesiologists. We work very closely with the American Hospital Association, the AMA, and we're frequently asked to participate, not only have them participate in our activities, but be asked to work on some of their key initiatives also. It's been extremely important. I will say, during the COVID pandemic, the relationships that we have built, not only with those organizations, but with our governmental agencies like the DEA and the FDA, has proven out to be very, very valuable, resulting in our advocacy with the DEA to loosen up some of the restrictions on the production of controlled substances so we could care for the COVID patients and that high demand for fentanyl and midazolam. In addition to that, we've worked very closely with the FDA to loosen some regulations and HHS to allow pharmacists to order and administer COVID-19 tests. So all of that relationship building and that interdisciplinary work to support that has really, really helped us respond to this, the current situation that we're all faced with.
What would you say is the biggest life lesson you've experienced as a pharmacist and also in your role currently at ASHP?
The biggest life lesson. That's a tough one. I've learned a lot. I've learned, the biggest life lesson I guess I've learned is to listen to others and take into consideration where their perspectives are from. I really value everyone's path that they've gone through and their experiences and how that shaped what their thought process is and their decision making. And I think that that's really something that I continue to learn more and more about as I continue my profession, although it's been a long one so far. But I don't ever want to make, I always want to make sure that I am listening keenly and trying to listen to understand another person's perspective. So I would say that that's probably been my biggest life lesson, and to never give up, never settle, which I truly believe you should never settle for the way it is.
Mm-hmm. So being president of, ASHP and being a national organization, how hard is it to sometimes, make changes that won't affect everybody the same? You can't make everyone happy. So I guess how do you go about doing that?
Sure. We have a pretty long, solid history of getting individuals involved across the United States in different practice settings at ASHP. And we truly value that. That is one of our values. And so we have a number of means to do that. And I think we've been very, very successful. We have sections and forums. We pull together, as I spoke about, the opioid task force. We do policy making with our councils and then through our House of Delegates. And we always make sure we're balancing members from different parts of the United States, different practice settings, different years of experience. So we really take pride in doing that. And that allows us really to formulate the best tools, processes, helpful activities for our members, and also to support our members. We've done also a lot through our state affiliates, leveraging members as well as state affiliates and their relationships within their organizations. And we have a number of examples of where we've been able to bring folks together across the United States and share stories through conference calls, webcasts, podcasts, webinars, so that individuals in different parts of the country can learn how other individuals have been dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. So we've done a significant amount of work over a number of years. It just doesn't happen overnight, of connecting members so that we can make sure we can come up with the best policy, the best tools that support all members.
Who are some people that have been the most influential throughout your career? I mean, we're at school, we always talk about like mentors and mentees. I'm sure you've had yours. Who are some of those people that have been most influential throughout your career?
Yeah. I would say the first most influential person was my father, and I spoke about him earlier on, and how he influenced me in always doing hard work and always investing in your community and never settling. So really my father was my shining example of really the person who gave me my core values. Beyond that, I really was racking my brain when you told me you were going to ask me this question. There have been a number of people that have influenced me, all in very different ways, from the team members that I've worked with, the pharmacists and technicians. I've tried to learn things from a variety of individuals, to the leaders that I've met in my organizations inside and outside of pharmacy, as well as those who've been in the profession and practice in other areas in the country. So I would tell you it's a really, really difficult call, because I try to listen and learn from pretty much everybody I've worked with. So good question. I wish I could give you a couple more names, but I couldn't list them all. So.
Yeah, throughout your career, of course, you come in contact with so many people. It's hard to, name all of them, but everybody leaves a different effect. So, learning from everybody's. I guess my next question is, how important is advocacy in the profession of pharmacy? Because at the end of the day, nothing is going to get done if legislation doesn't get passed in favor of what we're doing. That's just the way it is. So can you just speak on how important advocacy is?
Yep, advocacy. I am a strong proponent of advocacy. You're correct. The world is constantly changing, and if we are not advocating for what's right for our practice and for our patients, the world will go on and not notice us. So advocacy at all levels is extremely important. And I think that none of us should ever, ever underestimate how our voice counts. It doesn't matter who you are, where you practice, what year you are in your life cycle of your career. Advocacy is truly important. Several years ago at Beaumont, I had our government relations group reach out to me and ask me to review some legislation that was up for review and in Michigan. And I took a look at it and I realized this could not, it was all related to sterile compounding. And I realized that there were components of it I knew that they would not change, that had to stay. But there were a few pieces that operationally just could not work in a hospital situation. It was really more based on a compounding pharmacy, not a hospital pharmacy. Long story short, so I spoke up, and I was connected with the Michigan Hospital Association. We got very involved at the last minute. I was able to speak to the congressman who was sponsoring the bill, and we were able to change that legislation so it wouldn't be quite so onerous on health systems. And as a result, we determined that, or MHA, the Michigan Hospital Association, determined that they did not have pharmacists from their member organizations, their member hospitals, to give them guidance on policy that comes across their desk. And so we started a pharmacy management committee, part of the MHA, that meets twice a year. So I think you never really realize how valuable speaking up is. And I would encourage everyone to speak up and advocate for what's right for our patients and our ability to care for those patients.
So we've talked about interprofessionalism a couple of times so far. What other profession besides your own would you like to attempt if given the opportunity? And you cannot say pharmacy.
Oh, shoot, darn. How'd you know?
And you can't say pharmacy technician either.
Okay, I won't say that. And I would say artist, but I don't have enough talent to survive financially.
Well, you have the platform. If you can sing, this is your platform.
Yeah, actually, I would, kind of going back to your last question about advocacy, my next profession, if I were to have a choice, would be in public policy, either through political science or through a law degree. I have a keen interest in regulations, laws, and policy, all tied into advocacy. So that would absolutely be my second choice below pharmacy.
And your third choice is a singer?
No, not a singer, an artist, a painter.
So, loaded question here. How do you think this COVID-19 pandemic is going to change the landscape of healthcare and how we practice moving forward? I know you mentioned telemedicine earlier. Can you just elaborate on that?
Yep, I think that it's going to absolutely change how we deliver care. Certainly dealing with infectious disease or the issues we have to deal with having COVID patients in our institutions or in our practices, and those non-COVID patients will be quite challenging. And using or leveraging technology and what we've been able to accomplish during this pandemic really highlights our abilities as a nation to move in that direction. So I certainly think that COVID-19 will force us a little bit quicker down that path. I also believe that the COVID-19 pandemic has allowed us to highlight the value of pharmacists and the care that we give to patients more than ever. We are stronger than we have ever been, and we are being listened to at the highest levels, which I think allows us the ability to continue to push to change our practice to be recognized as providers. And then finally, the pandemic has absolutely highlighted what we've been, the path we've been marching down with through the last couple of years related to the drug supply chain and drug shortages and the manufacturing capabilities within the United States. So I do believe that I'm hopeful that we will see some positive movement forward and some alliances between our profession, the pharmaceutical organizations, the pharmaceutical manufacturers, I should say, the wholesalers, as well as governmental agencies, to really fix the drug supply chain.
Speaking on the topic of COVID-19 and the pandemic, how do you think the pandemic is going to affect the incoming residents? Because I know a lot of hospitals even extended the deadline till January for their NAPLEX to even be put in. Do you think how do you think that's going to affect them?
Yeah, I would be remiss to say you're not going to see any impact, because that would be unrealistic. Certainly, I think in a broad perspective, as a pharmacy resident, you will see an organization that is in the middle of change, dealing with the pandemic and then what it looks like after the fact. So I always see every change as an opportunity to learn more, especially during a year of residency. So from that perspective, I would advise as a resident that you remain patient and understand that there's a lot that we don't know, and we don't know what it's going to look like always on the other end. But really take advantage of learning how those decisions are made, how things evolve, and how individuals work through that change. So I do think it's a great opportunity. It's a little bit scary, I will admit, not knowing exactly what to expect, but I think if I were a resident starting out today, I would take an advantage of that as an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, like me and Aaron were talking beforehand. We were saying that like the pandemic, it sucks. It's obviously affected everyone, but it's also opened up so many doors, and we've learned so much from it. Like we would have never thought about, hey, we can sit with Dr. Pawlicki and she's always in somewhere else, and we're over here and we're able to connect with her. So there's always a positive to take out of a negative.
There absolutely is. Absolutely.
So what is, I guess, some of the main goals, I guess, ASHP has within the next couple of years that they want to accomplish?
Yeah, our mission is to assure that everyone has access to optimal health through medications. And I believe that, that we have a number of goals. We certainly, we have recently launched, actually it was a little less than a year ago, launched the Innovation Center, which is looking at digital health and digital therapeutics. So certainly we would like to be at the forefront of shepherding that. We also have a goal of really helping fix the supply chain issues, not only pricing, but absolutely drug shortages and the manufacturing that we end up being tied to when we have limited manufacturing capabilities or limited diversity in manufacturing capabilities. So I believe that those are a couple of the goals for ASHP. Certainly working with our state affiliates to support the grassroots efforts for provider status and recognition as a provider for a pharmacist, as well as standardizing the education and training of our pharmacy technician workforce. So those are the ones that come to top of mind. We have a number of objectives, but I would say those are the top ones that come to my mind initially.
What would you say is most important to ASHP? Is it your mission, your core values, or your vision?
Well, you really can't have one of them stand alone. So I would have to say they all are equally important. The mission is the business of the organization, and the vision is where we want to go. And that together is what we use to create strategy. Core values really keeps us on track of those. So you can't pull out one as more important than the other. They all three have a role. And we use them at ASHP to guide how we move the profession forward, support our members, support our state affiliates.
I figured you would say that.
So you've had a long career, as we all know. What is one thing you've learned that you wish you knew before that you think could change your career, your life?
Oh, I really wouldn't change anything in my, that's a tough one. I would say, I was fortunate and it kind of happened, but I'm not sure I did it purposefully initially, is networking, and the value of connecting with others. It happened a little bit organically for me, but had I known, I might have been a little bit more purposeful with it. Meeting and getting to know others from different practice settings, I think would have been probably helpful to me a little bit earlier on in my career, at least allowed me to think a little bit more purposefully about some of the interactions that I had early on in my career.
What would you say is the biggest challenge facing leaders today?
Oh gosh, probably coming out of this COVID-19. Yeah, I would have to say, prior to the pandemic, I would say workforce and finances and drug supply chain are like the three top pieces that leaders were navigating. But I think now with the COVID-19 epidemic, it's going to be the change in the complexity of what we are going to have to navigate coming out of this, and what we look like on the other side is probably the biggest challenge for leaders. Now, certainly that entails workforce, technology, finances, as well as supply chain. So it still encompasses all of those things, but it's going to be a little bit different than where we were last fall.
For sure.
And in your career, you've done things for a while. Do you ever have moments where you feel still kind of incompetent, or am I good enough to do that? And how do you get through those moments? Because I know we have them on a daily basis. So how do you get out of that situation?
Yeah, I got it. Well, I did I took a look at a while ago when I did a white coat ceremony. What advice would I give to myself and to new pharmacy professionals, coming out into the field, about how do you get through that? And I guess I could summarize it into three key elements. The first is to embrace every opportunity. I saw a great quote by Richard Branson a while ago, and it said something about if you're faced with an opportunity, say yes, and then figure out how to do it later. So I would say, first of all, embrace opportunity. And then the second key point would be to believe in yourself. You have talents, you have skills. You may not be able to know the drug information, the answer to the question about a drug, but you absolutely know where you need to go to get it. So you do have the skills. You need to believe in yourself. And then the third piece is to live with a purpose. So live every day with the purpose of doing something good for your patient, for a colleague, for a friend, or for yourself. So live every day with a purpose. And I think if you take those three elements, embrace opportunities, believe in yourself, and live with the purpose, I don't think anything feels like you can't tackle it.
Can you explain the impact, if any, of social networking that it has made on your organization or even yourself personally?
Sure. Social networking is important for both the organization as well as myself professionally. As far as the organization goes, that's how we help our members connect, is through that social networking environment that we are able to foster through the organization, either through face-to-face meetings or through conference calls, podcasts, webinars. So we really spend a good amount of resources and time facilitating and fostering within the organization social networking. That allows us to make sure that what bubbles out of that social networking is really good advice, good tools, good products that come that help and that will help our members. For me professionally, social networking has been just the highlight, if you will. One of the things that really is so rewarding about a career in pharmacy. Pharmacists, we are unlike many professions. I've had conversations along the years with individuals in respiratory or nursing or, different PTOT, and said, well, what do your colleagues say? And can you reach out to someone? And they look at me like, what do you mean reach out to somebody outside our organization? I think pharmacy is a very, very different, unique professional organization. I'm so happy that I ended up down this path. It's not difficult to reach out to someone in Florida or someone in California and say, hey, can you help me with this problem? How did you tackle this problem? So I think social networking has really allowed us as a profession to grow, and allowed me to grow and have an opportunity to meet more people and get better ideas than I would on my own.
So what do you say to people? I guess there's sometimes a stigma that the market of pharmacy is saturated. What do you say to, those people coming out of school, and how do they stand out?
Yeah, I think, certainly a little bit of what I've spoke about before. Take every opportunity that you have and really make sure that you've had a variety of opportunities that you can draw on, and take an inventory of what attributes you have that can contribute to the workforce. And they could be things related to the profession of pharmacy or unrelated. Some of the other things that you've done that really make you stand out. The attributes you have are very individualized to you, and no one else has lived your life. So I think that those are really key aspects. Always stay engaged and committed to the profession. It is challenging. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that at all. I certainly recognize that, but really taking advantage of opportunities, networking, and realizing the attributes that you have that can contribute will be very helpful for you in your future careers.
Now, I have a little fun question for you.
Okay.
If we were to go back to undergrad or even high school, what would your friends and professors say who you are? If we were to like, hey, who's Dr. Pawlicki? What would they say?
Oh gosh, what would they say?
We hope it's good.
I think it would be good. I think it would be good. I think that they would say that I was kind to everyone, but that I also got involved in everything. I wasn't very good always, but I always tried. So I was in a small high school. I told you that. So I tried everything. I was in the musical, but I couldn't sing, so I never got a singing part. I was in the band. I didn't really, again, not very musical, so I was really, in the flag corps. I was in debate. I was in forensics. I mean, I just wanted to get so involved and just soak up everything I could learn and understand from every different aspect. And I wasn't afraid to raise my hand and say, I'm sure I can chair that, or sure I can get involved in that. So I think that's what they would say about me.
We hope they will say positive things.
I hope so.
So
at
what moment in your life were you like, I know I want to be in the field of pharmacy? Like when did it click, and did you know you want to do that, or did it just kind of happen?
It just kind of happened. Actually, I wasn't down this path, but due to an illness, and I had to drop out of pharmacy, and I loved science, like most of us, and chemistry was really the best fit for me. And way back when I was in high school, we didn't do a lot of career planning, right? And so I walked into a pharmacy one day and I said, maybe I want to go to pharmacy school. So I started researching it, and I fell in love with all the classes. And I've never looked back, and I just keep loving it more and more. I never would change a single thing, a single job I had, a single activity I had to do. I've learned from all of them, and I've really enjoyed my career path.
So before we did this, we reached out to our audience and asked them to submit some questions that they would want to hear you answer. One of the questions was, is it hard staying connected and involved in organizations after graduating pharmacy school? So I guess answering that question, also giving advice to someone coming outside on how they can stay connected.
Yeah. It is absolutely not. That we are, all organizations are looking for volunteers. So just remember that. They want individuals who are engaged and will contribute. I would suggest that you look in your local area where you settle for the local pharmacy organization. That really allows you to get really involved in organizations at the grassroots level. And we are always looking for volunteers, either a committee member, and once you're a committee member, then that leads to other positions within the organization. So I would certainly look at the local level. You could try at the state level too. There are opportunities for new practitioners at the state level. And certainly we do have some opportunity in ASHP. We have a new practitioners forum, which is where individuals, I believe it's the first year out in practice, that you can become a member of the new practitioners forum. And we certainly have a number of groups that spin off of that, but it is a very active group, very engaged. I've actually worked with that group a little bit when I was a liaison with that group, and it's a phenomenal group of individuals. So there are a multitude of ways to stay engaged in a professional organization.
Another question that was asked is, I have a lot of different talents, but none of them seem to be related to pharmacy. How can I show my value even though I have average grades?
Yeah, I think that goes back to looking at what your attributes are and recognizing how you can bridge that gap. We need individuals with a variety of different talents within pharmacy. I will tell you, we laughed about, my second career as being an artist. I really do love arts and crafts, everything from needlework to painting, just a variety of things. And so I use that a little bit of creative bent to me when I practice pharmacy. When I lead, I try to stretch that part of my brain that has a little bit of a creative activity. I've known individuals who were really good in sports, and after they graduated, they became a coach of a little league team. And those are great skills that transfer being a coach over to a profession, especially a profession like pharmacy. So I think there are a multitude of talents that individuals have that really translate into the work of a pharmacist or a pharmacy leader.
Do you think that having those attributes, like the hobbies, extra hobbies on the side, is that what forms a good leader? And having that extra something else that's not related to your field, having that with you? Because it seems like a lot of people that are leaders have those.
I think it is, because I think it gives you yet another perspective. You can always, sometimes you get too insulated by the same thought process. And so it opens you up to and exposes you to individuals who think differently in different activities. It also absolutely supports what we talked about with resiliency and getting away from, the day-to-day work and really kind of doing something totally different. So I think that also is a big piece to it, is to be resilient. You need to move your mind somewhere else for a little bit. Your physical activity, your social activity, you need to move it away, even if it's an hour or a weekend or an afternoon or an evening. I think that also helps with the resiliency piece, which creates a good leader, right? If you yourself aren't taking care of your own health and well-being, how can you help your staff? How can you help others that you are leading?
Exactly. How important is teamwork? We always go back to that. Me and Nima always speak that you can't do things alone. That's just how it works. You never will get anything done alone. How important is teamwork, and how important are those relationships you build with the people you work with and other people?
Oh, they're key. I think you hit the nail on the head. You can't do it yourself. I can do it myself, but then it's the Kathy Pawlicki way, which may not fit for anybody else, right? So you get your best ideas, you get your best ability to cope with new projects, change, problem solving, when you involve more individuals and you work as a team collaboratively to reach the same goal. So I don't think you can ever underestimate the value of teamwork. And those relationships help you build a strong team, correct? So networking with your own staff, building relationships with your own staff, your own colleagues, or colleagues, you know, that are not in pharmacy, your medical team that you round with, certainly helps you have an open relationship, an open dialogue to get to the point of problem solving and troubleshooting and planning and strategizing for the future.
How would you define success in your viewpoint, in your words?
I think success is making a difference and never settling. It's my mantra. It was my inaugural mantra. Never settling and making a difference. Living your life purposefully so that every day you're making a difference with someone else or for yourself, a colleague, a patient, a friend. I think that's a successful life.
So I know we've asked you a lot of questions. If you were to step into our shoes, what would you have asked yourself that we didn't?
Oh, gosh. What would I have asked myself?
It could be anything. It could be anything.
If you want to think about that, I can ask you a question. If you want to think about that.
Why don't you ask me a question? I got to think about that.
Think about that one. So since I have two questions for you. Since class of 2020 didn't have a graduation or whatever, we wanted to see if you could give them, if you have a speech for the class of 2020, the residents, all the residents of 2020, what would you like to tell them? What would you, the message you want to send them? Go ahead.
All right. My message is be unstoppable. Think about what I spoke about with believing in yourself, embracing opportunities, and living with a purpose. And if you do those three things, I really hope that all of you will be unstoppable in what you can accomplish within your profession and within your personal lives.
Perfect. And one other thing, and talking about mid-year for 2020 this year coming up, I'm not sure if it's going to be happening or what the situation of it is. How has COVID-19 affected the way things that are going to be happening at the conference this year?
Sure. So we are looking at all options, keeping in mind the safety and the public health concerns with the COVID-19. As of this date, the state of Louisiana, as well as the city of New Orleans, has not canceled any events in December. So the mid-year is, as of today, still on. So we are planning how would we navigate the public health concerns. But we are looking at a whole range of options because we know that this is an evolving situation and that could change tomorrow, right?
Yes.
So we actually have been spending, our staff has been spending a number of resources or time, if you will, commitment to looking at what could the mid-year look like in a variety of different scenarios, all the way up to a full virtual meeting where we still keep intact the important face-to-face activities and maybe create some unique and new arenas for learning. So we're looking at and planning for all different scenarios, but as of today, the mid-year will still be held in New Orleans. We will have science and public health policy, though, guide our decision making and how we host the mid-year. Perfect.
Well, that's good news for us because we would love to come to New Orleans and go to mid-year. I went to mid-year my P1 year and it was an amazing experience. So I can't wait to see it this year.
My first mid-year as a resident was in New Orleans. So
so this is a reunion.
It's a reunion. Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
So going back to Aaron's question, I don't know, Aaron, if you want to ask the question again, or do you remember what he asked?
Oh yeah, I remember. What would I ask myself? Am I correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Or you can switch it up and maybe ask us a question. Either is better.
Maybe I'll ask you a question. I like that better.
Maybe I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, now you put us on the spot.
It's only fair. It's only fair. So what do you both hope to accomplish your first 5 years out of school? Do you know?
Yeah, I can start off. Obviously, attaining a career and a job, that's obviously step one. I really want to make sure that we're able to make a difference in the field the way we want to. Me and Nima bring a lot of different things to the table. We're not the typical student. We're very atypical. Yeah. And, we obviously we started our own podcast, things like that. And I think we can do different things collaboratively with other organizations like the AMA, things like that, that hasn't been done before. And I feel like there is a void that is needing to be filled. And with doing things like this and having a career in pharmacy, I think we'll be able to do that.
Good.
Yeah, I think I'll piggyback on that. It's pretty much it. When we started this, we wanted to start it and we don't want to just end it after pharmacy school is over. We want to really use this as a tool to make an impact in the profession. And by being able to meet with different physicians, dentists, optometrists, and be able to really connect everyone together and really show the value that the pharmacist holds. Like we're pharmacy students reaching out and sitting down with these prestigious people. And I want people to be able to look at them and be like, hey, that's a pharmacist doing it, and so then the future people coming up, the future students can hopefully be inspired by what we do and in the long run, make an impact in the profession as a whole.
Great. That's wonderful. Well, I'm going to watch you too, that's for sure. So I'm going to hold you to it. So did you want me to ask my question of myself?
Yeah.
You can.
Okay. I finally came up with one.
If you want. Okay, perfect.
All right. So I guess one question you didn't ask me was, what was the toughest career decision I ever had to make?
What is the toughest career decision you ever had?
No, you're too late.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, great. Okay, great. This is kind of interesting. So I probably about 6 years ago, I was a director of a very large hospital or pharmacy department, and I also had responsibilities for a couple other departments. And the hospital president and I started having discussions of where my career was going next. Did I want to be a chief pharmacist for a health system, or did I want to move out of pharmacy and move into the world of hospital operations and become a VP and move towards the path of maybe at one point a COO or in hospital operations. And that was really tough. It's interesting. It was certainly much later in my career, and I struggled with that decision and that conversation with him, several conversations with him, and my answer back to him. And someone finally looked at me and they said, "You never had to make a career decision, did you, Kathy?" And I said, "No, I didn't. Like, positions just happened and I took advantage of them and I put my name in the hat. I didn't actively always go out and seek." But now I was faced with deciding what I needed to do with my career. And I had done a fair amount of work on the hospital operations side. So I talked to a number of individuals over a couple months period of time. Those individuals who had always been in hospital operations at the hospital administrative level, to pharmacists who had moved from a director of pharmacy into hospital administration and as high up as a hospital president. And I really, really struggled with that decision. It was really, really tough. And finally, someone said something to me and said, "What do you love? At the end of the day, what do you love?" And I really started thinking about that. And I started thinking that, when I retire, if I'm in hospital administration, I retire and really my career is probably pretty over, because there isn't the same type of networking and organizational activities that happen. But when I retire in pharmacy, you can still remain very active and very involved and very engaged and still give back to the profession. And that's what made my choice. I finally went to the hospital president and I said, "You know what? I want to stay down the pharmacy route and I want to be a chief pharmacist, a VP and a chief pharmacist." And I was fortunate a few years later that that opportunity did present itself to me, but it was a difficult decision. It was later in my career. I wasn't expecting it.
Well, that was an awesome question. I wish we could have came up with that.
You can use it on your next guest.
Well, we want to thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us. I know you're super busy, and taking the time to sit down with us, it means the world. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So stay safe, healthy, and hopeful. So
yeah, and we want to thank everyone that's tuned in virtually through Zoom and through YouTube right now. So my name is Nima.
My name is Aaron.
And we had Dr. Dr.Pawlicki, ASHP president, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Goodbye.